On today's video, we have a new Ultraman Blu-ray of two shows I wasn't sure would ever come out again.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to my review of the Alliance Entertainment Blu-ray release of Ultraman Towards the Future and Ultraman the Ultimate Hero. Two shows I feel like I'm going to do a lot of explaining for, because I feel like a lot of people don't know about these. So before we begin, hit the like button, subscribe to the notification bell if you want to keep up with future videos and you enjoy this. Hit the hype button if it's available to you. Appreciate all that, helps the channel out. Alright, let's take a look at this set. So this was a nice surprise announcement last year, because these two shows were co-productions from Tsuburaya and Western Studios, and also Southern Studios, technically. So we have Ultraman Towards the Future, also known as Ultraman Great, which was shot in Australia, and then we have Ultraman the Ultimate Hero, also known as Ultraman Powered, which was shot in Los Angeles. So these two shows were international productions of Tsuburaya trying to expand the Ultraman brand outward, which is pretty cool. I think that, they were kind of in a big gap in the Japan productions, but they actually wanted to keep Ultraman going, and I think that was pretty awesome. This is kind of the follow-up production to Ultraman The Adventure Begins, also known as Ultraman USA. You can go check out my review of that, which I did prior, where this was done as a co-production with Hanna-Barbera to do an animated Ultraman TV show, which ultimately just ended up becoming a pilot movie. And so that was like the first English-produced Ultraman production that was produced in English first. And these were kind of pickups from that, but they're kind of in your more traditional Ultraman style, being, of course, the live-action Tokusatsu series. So when it comes to this set, they've packed both together, which I think is really smart, because selling them on their own would kind of be silly, mostly because they are about 13 episodes apiece. And so because of that, it just makes sense to put them together, right? It's like one set. We do have one audio track option, and we have subtitles. We'll take a look at all that in a bit. But I did like that they added, Ultraman Towards the Future, aka Ultraman Great, because that is the name in Japan, and that's how we distinguish this Ultraman from the others. But you can kind of see we also did the same thing over here with Ultraman Powered. I did like how they chose a screenshot of Powered, where he is still featured, but can avoid where the barcode goes. That's really smart packaging design. But these two shows, they kind of run what you would expect for Ultraman. It's like you have a hero, and he's in peril, and then Ultraman bonds with him, and then he goes and fight monsters once a week, and is part of a defense force. And that's kind of it's your standard Ultraman setups, but it's kind of interesting to see it done through different lenses. And I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit of the production history behind these, instead of just jumping into the releases, because, it's just, two 13-episode shows on 4 discs. They did annoyingly stack them on top of each other. As I talk about, do prefer the actual spindle pallets in the middle, as opposed to stacking the discs on top of each other. But you can see that the shows are split up here across both. The packaging art and the disc art and the menu art, they're not all original from the show's production. I can see we put Powered on the inside here. They're not actually original shots from the show's productions, because there's not that many promotional images available for them. These are from photo shoots when they remastered the suits. I believe these photos came from either the Japanese Blu-ray or from when they did Ultra Galaxy Fight, where Great and Powered were featured heroes in a few of those series, which was always fun when they bring these guys out for the crossovers. So that's kind of where that's from. So let's start with Ultraman Towards the Future, also known as Ultraman Great. This series itself was a co-production with the South Australia Film Corporation, and so it was produced in South Australia, but it didn't air in Australia. Instead, it came out direct-to-video on Laserdisc in Japan in 1990. Then it aired in Japan in 1991, and then in the United States, it aired in 1992. And so Ultraman Towards the Future does have some prominence for people, because they did have tie-in merchandise like toys and other productions. They were really trying to push it, but it did get lost in the shuffle because it came out right before Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then it didn't really have a chance to rerun after that kind of Power Rangers boom of American Tokusatsu productions. But then the thing was that it did have at least enough success for Tsuburaya to go, okay, let's make another one, and that's where Ultraman the Ultimate Hero comes in, also known as Ultraman Powered. You can see we got a nice screenshot there for him. And Ultraman Powered is kind of an interesting show because it was produced in Los Angeles. It was produced in America. It didn't actually air on American television. It was first released on home video in North America and Japan in 1993, and then it later aired in Japan in 1995, and that was it. It didn't actually have an American TV run despite being produced in the U.S. Itself. So that's kind of an interesting part about this. Another thing, too, with Powered, compared to Great, Powered's suit was very kind of traditional design. You can see that Great suit is more fabric than normal Ultraman suits, whereas Powered had the more rubber suit. But because of the lower budget of the series, they didn't have the money to make a suit, multiple copies of suits. They only had the one, and so the fight scenes in Powered are kind of notable for being slowed as to not damage the costume. But that being said, the visual differences between these two shows is quite interesting when we look at it, because both were released on Blu-ray in Japan around 2017, and I believe that is the same exact video masters being used for this release. So now if you're somebody that enjoys both Ultraman Great, Towards the Future, or Powered, the Ultimate Hero, and you want to know more about the productions of these shows, Hero Club, website I'm a part of, did interviews with the leads of both shows. Dore Kraus, who was Jack Shindo in Ultraman Great, and then Kane Kosugi, who was Ultraman Powered, also known as Kai. And he also has been in plenty of other Tokusatsu shows that you might be familiar with, like Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger, Kamen Rider Revice, and Godzilla Final Wars. So go check out those interviews. They'll be linked in the description, and check them out if you want more detail on the background of the production of these shows. All right, so naturally, it has come to that time where we need to take a look at the discs themselves and start to take a look at how this set stacks up in terms of video and audio quality, as well as the features on the discs. All right, let's start with Ultraman Towards the Future, or Ultraman Great. On disc 1, we have the first batch of episodes from the series. Not too much in options, because there was a Japanese dub for the show that had a new opening and ending theme song. That version's not presented here. It's just the original English version, which I would prefer that to something like Ultraman USA, where we got confused as to what audio we had. But we do have subtitles, so the subtitles are closed captionings for the episodes, which includes all of your text to describe sound effects and stuff, which is awesome. Let's take a look for quality. So the quality is what I would call, it is what it is. The thing with this show and also with the other show in the set is that they were digital tape produced shows, and so they look like it. The opening credits have kind of a weird filter on them. That's just kind of the nature of the credits to Towards the Future, so it's just, that's how we have to go with it. But a lot of the show just kind of looks like this. It's a little crunchy, it's a little weird. There's a lot of filters, a lot of background work done. You can see how the closed captioning appears if you have the closed captioning turned on. Like if you go back here and you look at this shot, it's like, yeah, that's kind of a weird compositing shot, and it looks like a weird compositing shot from the early 90s. Though that being said, when you get to shots that aren't having any visual effects on them, they look pretty good. It does not look like your crystal clear HD full restoration. It's like DVD plus. But I'm glad to have it on Blu-ray as opposed to DVD for the overall sturdier discs and the better compacting of only 4 discs instead of like 8 or something. But it isn't like pristine HD quality. And this isn't just something from the Alliance Entertainment side of things. This is just how the show looks. This is how the show is kept. It doesn't have film stock to restore. This is the best it's going to look. This is what Tsuburaya put out in Japan. This is what we get here. So overall, in terms of video rating on Ultraman Towards the Future, it looks fine, because it's always looked fine, and it's not going to look any better without a ton of work that probably isn't worth the monetary investment for companies involved for a show that ultimately is kind of a footnote in history, more so than anything that was revolutionary. And much as expected, Disc 2 for Towards the Future looks the same as Disc 1, just got a different batch of episodes. So time for the real reason this set is a Blu-ray, not just a DVD. I think Great pretty much looks like a DVD, regardless if you have it on Blu-ray or not. I think the quality of the picture is just, that's what it is. But Ultraman, the Ultimate Hero, Ultraman Powered, on the other hand, looks fantastic. So first of all, it's the same thing, 2 discs, batch of episodes. Subtitles are just closed captioning. Take a look at this. Hey, look at that. Solid HD quality. The picture, fantastic. The audio, solid. The closed captionings, excellent. Yes, Ultraman, the Ultimate Hero, was actually seemingly preserved better. This is, again, the case with the Japanese Blu-rays as well. With Ultraman Towards the Future, it looks all right, you know. It's kind of what you'd expect from an early 90s show. But Ultraman Powered, the Ultimate Hero here, looks so good. Like, this is kind of like what you would expect from an HD restoration and a Blu-ray release of an Ultraman show. And seeing one that looks this good is really, really nice. It actually looks a little bit nicer even than some of like the TDG trilogy remasters, which is wild. But this is kind of what you would expect when you see the word Blu-ray. And even the VFX heavy shots look really solid. I'm very impressed by how this show looks on Blu-ray. It's much better than I expected, and especially after how the first show looked, it's a really big upgrade, and it's kind of fun to see for this series itself to have like such a nice release of it. And then of course here's the second disc with the rest of the episodes put on it. Amused by the last episode being the final showdown? Question mark? It was the final showdown. This is how the show ended, but yeah, just really solid overall, just on the same thing with the second disc as the first disc. Looks really great. So overall, I think the set's pretty solid, but of course, let's see how it looks on our shelves, because we talked about with Mill Creek becoming Alliance Home Video, the logo's changing, how the spines change. Well, first of all, we need to kind of establish a timeline. So Ultraman 80 was the last Tsuburaya production Ultraman show in Japan of the Showa era, so that's 80 was there. Then the next major Ultraman production was early Heisei era with Ultraman USA. Then we have Ultraman Towards the Future and Ultimate Hero coming out in the 90s. Then Ultraman Zearth premiering just before the beginning of the Heisei era of Ultraman with Ultraman Tiga. So if you're putting them on your shelf, this is what you got. And in some ways, yes, there is zero consistency in the middle here between them. On other things, I think it's very reflective of that era. The kind of wilderness years period between Ultraman 80 in 1980 and Ultraman Tiga in 1996. Basically, there's some other stuff in here that's not been released yet, but they were just trying to get Ultraman back, and Tsuburaya just didn't have the money to produce it themselves, and so you had co-productions, and Zearth, which is kind of a more comedic take on Ultraman, comes out around the same time as Tiga. Actually, I'm trying to remember now, I think Zearth actually came out after Tiga, but most people put Zearth just before because of the Tiga Dyna Gaia trilogy having the connected spines. So I guess technically, timeline-wise, it's actually probably closer to that. But if you take Zearth out of here, you know, I do kind of like that there's Blu-rays of the stuff in between, but there's not Blu-rays of Tiga onward, which is weird that happened, but that's just kind of where we're at. But, you know, it is nice to see we kind of filled those gaps because, officially speaking, you know, Towards the Future and Ultimate Hero are numbered Ultraman shows between 80 and Tiga, right? Because USA is a movie, but between 80 and Tiga, these are the two shows in the official numbering. And so it's really, really nice to have them brought to home video to go with this collection. And it just amazes me how much Ultraman we've gotten that we're able to get Great and Powered released on Blu-ray. So that does it for Ultraman Towards the Future and Ultraman the Ultimate Hero, the newest Blu-ray for Ultraman. I'm excited to see what we do next, because again, the amount of stuff that's actually never been released is very small. Of course, we've already been promised the Ultraman 4K and the Ultra 7 4Ks, so we'll see when those come up. But I'm just really happy to have these, and I'm really glad that these were filled in, because I feel like out of all the stuff we were missing outside of like maybe Tiga's movie, this was one of the most significant for the history of the series, as well as being, you know, main Ultramans that have appeared in Ultra Galaxy Fight. I think outside of like Ultraman Boy, if I'm not wrong, I feel like we've gotten pretty much everybody that's appeared in Ultra Galaxy Fight. You can watch their original versions on disc. I think Boy's like the only one. Oh, and Ultraman Boy and Ultraman Nice, because Boy was a bunch of shorts and Ultraman Nice was commercials. But like everybody else, I think that's appeared in Ultra Galaxy Fight now has their original form, at least on Blu-ray, which I think is really, really awesome. Now, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, of course, because I'm probably forgetting somebody, but it's really nice how well the Ultraman collection is shaped up. So that does it for my review. Highly recommend this release if you want it, if you're an Ultraman collector. It's also very fascinating to have these two shows because they're very different, but also very similar to the normal Ultraman shows, which I think is really fun. And if you did enjoy it, hit the like button and subscribe and the notification bell if you haven't already. Really do appreciate all that. Also, be sure to check out our Discord server in the link below. You can also join as a channel member, and there's perks available like early access to videos and special shoutouts. Let's give some special shoutouts to some of our channel members. Special shout out to these Captain Tier channel members: GameBroker84, Daniel Baglos, Jay Wyatt, Zanuck, Kemen Marquis, Gone Wrong, Peter Jacobson, PM Maltese, Kryper TEM, Orion Optimus, Sanji, and C. Hoffman. Thank you all for your support of this channel members and viewers alike. If you still wish, I'm on social media on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Soundout12. You can find my wonderful graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643. And you can find Hero Club at hero-club.com for those two Ultraman interviews and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, let's see what we get next, because it's definitely going to be something new.